10. The intermediate soul. Once our souls advance past level 2 into the intermediate ranges of development, group cluster activity is considerably reduced. This does not mean we return to the kind of isolation we saw with the novice soul. Souls evolving into the middle development levels have less association with primary groups because they have acquired the maturity and experience for operating more independently. These souls are also reducing the number of their incarnations. Within levels 3 and 4, we are at last ready for more serious responsibilities. The relationship we have with our guides now changes from teacher-student to one of colleagues working together. Since our old guides have acquired new student groups, it is now our turn to develop teaching skills which will eventually qualify us for the responsibilities of being a guide to someone else. I have said the transitional stages of levels 2 and 4 are particularly difficult for me in pinpointing a soul's development. For instance, some level 4 souls begin targeting themselves toward primary cluster teacher training while still in level 3, while other subjects who are clearly level 4s find they are unsuited to be effective guides. Despite their high standards of morality and conduct, entities who have reached the intermediate levels of maturity are modest about their achievements. Naturally, each case is different, but I notice more composure with clients in this stage and above. I see trust rather than suspicion toward the motives of others on both a conscious and subconscious level. These people demonstrate a forward-looking attitude of faith and confidence for the future of humanity, which encourages those around them. My questions to the more mature soul are directed to esoteric ideas of purpose and creation. I admit to taking advantage of the higher knowledge possessed by these souls for the sort of spiritual information others lack. There have been clients who have told me they felt I pushed them rather hard in drawing out their spiritual memories, and I know they are right. The more advanced souls of this world possess remarkable comprehension of a universal life plan. I want to learn as much as possible from them. My next case falls into the upper portion of level 3 development, radiating a yellow energy devoid of any reddish tones. This client was a small, nondescript man, nearly 50 years old. His demeanor was quietly courteous towards me when we met, and I thought him a trifle solemn. I felt his unassuming detachment was somewhat studied, almost as a cover for stronger emotions. The most striking feature about him was his dark, morose eyes, which grew more intense as he began to talk about himself in a direct and persuasive manner. He told me he worked for a charitable organization dispensing food to the homeless, and that he had once been a journalist. This client had traveled quite some distance to discuss with me his concern over a decline in enthusiasm for his work. He said he was tired and wanted to spend the rest of his life quietly alone. His first session involved a review of the highlights of many past lives, so we could better evaluate a proper course for the remainder of his current life. I began by regressing the subject rapidly through a series of early lives, starting from his first life as a Cro-Magnon man in a Stone Age culture some 30,000 years ago. As we moved forward in time, I noted a consistency of lone wolf behavior patterns as opposed to normal tribal integration. From about 3000 BC to 500 BC, my client lived a number of lives in the Middle East during the rise of the early city-states in Sumerian, Babylonian, and Egyptian cultures. Nevertheless, even in lives as a woman, this subject often avoided family ties, including having no children. As a man, he showed a preference for nomadism. By the time we reached a life in Europe during the Dark Ages, I was becoming accustomed to a rebellious soul resisting tyrannical societies. During his lives, my subject worked to uplift people from fear, while remaining non-aligned to opposing factions. Suffering hardships and many setbacks, he continued as a wanderer with an obsession for freedom of movement. Some lives were not too productive, but during the 12th century, I found him in Central America in the body of an Aztec, organizing a band of Indians against the oppressions of a high priest. He was killed in this setting as a virtual outcast, while promoting nonviolent relations between tribes who were traditional enemies. In the 14th century, this soul was a European chronicler, traveling the Silk Road to Carthage to gain understanding of the peoples of Asia. Always facile with languages, as he is today, my client died in Asia as an old man, happily living in a peasant village. In Japan, at the beginning of the 17th century, he was a member of the clan of the Bleeding Crane. These men were respected, independent samurai mercenaries. At the end of this life, my subject was living in seclusion from the ruling Tokugawa shoguns because he had advised their weaker opponents on battle strategy. Frequently the outsider, always an explorer searching for truth across many lands, this soul continued to seek a rational meaning to life while giving aid to those he met along the way. I was surprised when he popped up as the wife of an American farmer on the frontier in the 19th century. The farmer died soon after their marriage. I learned my subject had deliberately incarnated to be a widow with children, tied to a piece of property as an exercise in the loss of mobility. When this part of his session ended, I knew I was working with a more advanced, older soul, even though he had a great many lives we did not review. Since this soul is approaching level 4, I would not have been surprised if his first appearance on Earth had gone back 70,000 years rather than half that amount of time. However, as I have mentioned, it is not an absolute prerequisite that souls have hundreds of physical lives in order to advance. I once had a client who entered into a level 3 state of awareness after only 4,000 years, an outstanding performance. I talked to my client about his current life and his customary methods of learning in previous lives. He explained he had never been married and that social non-alignments worked best for him. I suggested a few alternatives for his consideration. Primarily, I felt his lack of intimacy with people in too many lives was obstructing his progress. When this session ended, he was anxious that we explore his mind further for perceptions about the spirit world in another session. Upon his arrival the next day, I placed him in a superconscious state, and we went back to work. Case 22. Dr. N. By what name are you called in the spirit world? Subject. I am called Nentham. Dr. N. Nentham, do you have spirits around you right now, or are you alone? Subject. Pause. I am with 2 of my longtime companions. Dr. N. What are their names? Subject. Raoul and Senji. Dr. N. And the 3 of you are part of a larger spiritual group of souls working together? Subject. We were, but now the 3 of us work more by ourselves. Dr. N. What are the 3 of you doing at this moment? Subject. We are discussing the best ways to help each other during our incarnations. Dr. N. Tell me what you do for each other. Subject. I help Senji to forgive herself for mistakes and appreciate her own worth. She needs to stop being a mother figure all the time on Earth. Dr. N. How does she assist you? Subject. To see my lack of a sense of belonging. Dr. N. Give me an example of Senji's actions to assist you with this issue. Subject. Well, she was my wife in Japan after my days as a warrior were over. Something is troubling Nentham, and after a pause he adds the following. Raoul likes to pair with Senji, and I am usually alone. Dr. N. What about Raoul? How do you 2 help each other? Subject. I help him with patience, and he helps me with my tendency to avoid community life. Dr. N. Are you always 2 males and a female in your incarnations on Earth? Subject. No, we can change, and do, but this is comfortable for us. Dr. N. Why are the 3 of you working independently from the rest of your spiritual group? Subject. Pause. Oh, we see them here. Some have not gone forward with us. A few others are further ahead of us in their tasks. Dr. N, do you have a guide or teacher? Subject, in a soft tone. She is Idis. Dr. N, it sounds to me as if you have a high regard for her. Do you communicate well with Idis? Subject, yes, I do. Not that we don't have our disagreements. Dr. N, what is the main area of conflict between the two of you? Subject, she doesn't reincarnate much, and I tell her she should have more direct exposure to current conditions on Earth. Dr. N, are you mentally in tune with Idis to such an extent that you know all about her background training as a guide? Subject shakes head while pondering. It isn't that we can't ask questions, but we can only question what we know. Idis reveals to me what she thinks is relevant to my own experience. Dr. N, are guides able to screen their thoughts so you can't read their minds completely? Subject, yes, the older ones get proficient at that, knowing how to filter things we don't need to know because this knowledge would confuse us. Dr. N, will you learn to filter images? Subject, I already have a little. Dr. N, this must be why I have had many people tell me they have not been given definitive answers by their guides to all their questions. Subject, yes, and the intent of the question is important. When it was asked, and why. Perhaps it was not in their best interests to be given certain information which might disrupt them. Dr. N, aside from her teaching techniques, are you fond of Idis in terms of her identity? Subject, yes. I just wish she would agree to come with me, once. Dr. N, oh, you would like to actually have an Earth incarnation with her? Subject grins mischievously. I have told her we might relate better here if she would consent to come to Earth sometime and mate with me. Dr. N, and what does Idis say to that suggestion? Subject, she laughs and says she will think about it, if I can prove to her that it would be productive. At this juncture, I ask Nentham how long Idis has been associated with him, and learn she was assigned these 3 entities when they moved into Level 3. Nentham, Raoul, and Senji are also under the tutelage of a beloved older master guide who has been with them since the beginning of their existence. It would be inaccurate to assume that more advanced spirits lead lonely spiritual lives. This subject told me he was in contact with many souls. Raoul and Senji were simply his closest friends. Level 3 and 4 are significant stages for souls in their development because now they are given increased responsibilities for younger souls. The status of a guide is not given to us all at once, however. As with many other aspects of soul life, we are carefully tested. The intermediate levels are trial periods for potential teachers. While our aura is still yellow, our mentors assign us a soul to look after, and then evaluate our leadership performance both in and out of physical incarnations. Only if this preliminary training is successful are we allowed to function even at the level of a junior guide. Not everyone is suited for teaching, but this does not keep us from becoming an advanced soul in the blue section. Guides, like everyone else, have different abilities and talents, as well as shortcomings. By the time we reach level 5, our soul aptitudes are well known in the spirit world. We are given occupational duties commensurate with our abilities, which I will go into later in this chapter. Different avenues of approach to learning eventually bring all of us to the same end in acquiring spiritual wholeness. The richness of diversity is part of a master plan for the advancement of every soul, and I'm interested in how Case 22 is progressing in Level 3. Dr. N. Nentham, can you tell me if Idis is preparing you to be a guide, assuming you have an interest in that activity? Subject, quick response. I do have an interest. Dr. N. Oh, then are you developing as a guide yourself? Subject, modestly. Don't make too much of it. I'm really no more than a caretaker. helping Idas and taking directions. Dr. N, do you try and imitate her teaching style? Subject, no, we are different. As an apprentice, a caretaker, I couldn't do what she is able to accomplish anyway. Dr. N, when did you know you were ready to be a caretaker and begin assisting others spiritually? Subject, it's an awareness which comes over you after a great number of lives, that you are more in balance with yourself than previously, and are able to aid people as a spirit and in the flesh. Dr. N, are you operating in or out of the spirit world as a caretaker at this time? Subject, has difficulty in forming a response. I'm out in 2 lives. Dr. N, are you living in 2 parallel lives now? Subject, yes, I am. Dr. N, where are you living in this other life? Subject, Canada. Dr. N, is geography important to your Canadian assignment? Subject, yes, I picked a poor family in a rural community where I would be more indispensable. I'm in a small mountain town. Dr. N, give me the details of this Canadian life and your responsibilities. Subject, slowly. I'm taking care of my brother, Billy. His face and hands were horribly burned by a flash fire from a kitchen stove when he was 4 years old. I was 10 when it happened. Dr. N, are you the same age in the Canadian life as you are now in your American one? Subject, about the same. Dr. N, and your prime assignment in the Canadian life? Subject, to care for Billy, to help him see the world past his pain. He is almost blind, and his facial disfigurement causes him to be rejected by the community. I try to open him to an acceptance of life and to know who he really is from the inside. I read to him and go for walks in the forest holding his arm. I don't hold his hands because they are so damaged. Dr. N, what about your Canadian parents? Subject, without boasting. I am the parent. My father left after the fire and never came back. He was a weak man who was not kind to the family even before the fire. My mother's soul is not very capable in her body. They need someone with seasoning. Dr. N, someone physically strong? Subject, laughing. No, I'm a woman in Canada. I'm Billy's sister. My mother and brother require someone mentally tough to hold the family together and give them a course to follow. Dr. N, how do you provide for the family? Subject, I am a baker and I'll never marry because I can't leave them. Dr. N, what is your brother's major lesson? Subject, to acquire humility without being crushed by a life of little self-gratification. Dr. N, why didn't you take the role of your burned brother? Wouldn't that scenario provide you with the more difficult challenge? Subject, grimacing. I've already been through that one. Note, this subject has been physically injured in a number of past lives. Dr. N, yes, I suppose you have. I wonder if Billy's soul was ever involved with physically hurting you in one of your past lives. Subject, as a matter of fact, he did in one of them. When I was the sufferer, another caretaker stayed with me and I was a grateful receiver. Now it is Billy's turn and I am here for him. Dr. N, did you know in advance your brother was going to be incapacitated before you came into the Canadian life? Subject, sure. Idas and I discussed the whole situation. She said Billy's soul would require a caretaker, and since I had negative contact with this soul before in another life, I welcomed the job. Dr. N, besides the karmic lesson for Billy's soul, there are some for you too, in terms of your being in the role of a woman who is tied down. You can't just take off and roam around as you often do in your lives. Subject, that's true. The degree of difficulty in a life is measured by how challenging the situation is for you, not others. For me, being Billy's caretaker is harder than when I was on the receiving end, with another soul as my caretaker. Dr. N. Give me the most difficult factor of this assignment for you as a caretaker. Subject. To sustain a child, through their helplessness to adulthood. To teach a child to confront torment with courage. Dr. N. Billy's life is an extreme example, but it does seem Earth's children have much physical and emotional pain to go through. Subject. Without addressing and overcoming pain, you can never really connect with who you are and build on that. I must tell you, the more pain and adversity which come to you as a child, the more opportunity to expand your potential. Dr. N. And how are things working out for you as a caretaker in Canada? Subject. There is a more difficult set of choices to be made in the Canadian family, unlike my American life. But I have confidence in myself to put my comprehension to practical use. Dr. N. Did IDIS encourage or discourage your wanting to accelerate development by living parallel lives? Subject. She is always open about this. I haven't done it too much in the past. Dr. N. Why not? Subject. Life combinations can be tiring and divisive. The effort may become counterproductive with diminished returns for both lives. Dr. N. Well, I see that you are helping people in both your lives today. But have you ever lived contrasting lives where you did poorly in one life and better in another at the same time? Subject. Yes, although that was a long time ago on Earth. This is one of the advantages of life combinations. One life can offset the other. Still, doing this can be rough going. Dr. N. Then why do the guides permit parallel lives? Subject, scowling at me. Souls are not in a rigid bureaucratic environment. We are allowed to make mistakes in judgment and learn from them. Dr. N. I have the impression you think the average soul is better off living one life at a time. Subject. I would say yes in most instances, but there are other motivations to cause us to speed up incarnations. Dr. N. Such as? Subject. Amused. The rewards for bunching up lives can allow for more reflection out of incarnation. Dr. N. You mean the rest periods between lives might last longer for us after concurrent lives? Subject smiles. Sure. It takes longer to reflect on two lives than one. Dr. N. Nentham, I just have a couple more questions on the mechanics of soul splitting. How do you see the manner in which you divide your soul energy into various parts? Subject. We are as particles of energized units. We originated out of one unit. Dr. N. What was the original unit? Subject. The maker. Dr. N. Does each part of your soul remain intact, complete within itself? Subject. Yes, it does. Dr. N. Do all parts of our social energy go out of the spirit world when we incarnate? Subject. Part of us never leaves, since we do not totally separate from the maker. Dr. N. What does the part that remains in the spirit world do while we are on Earth in one or more bodies? Subject. It is more dormant, waiting to be rejoined to the rest of our energy. Most of my colleagues who work with past life clients have listened to overlapping time chronologies from people living on Earth in two places at once. Occasionally, there are 3 or more parallel lives. Souls in almost any stage of development are capable of living multiple physical lives, but I really don't see much of this in my cases. Many people feel the idea of souls having the capacity to divide in the spirit world and then attaching to 2 or more human bodies is against all their preconceptions of a singular, individualized spirit. I confess that I too felt uncomfortable the first time a client told me about having parallel lives. I can understand why some people find the concept of soul duality perplexing, especially when faced with the further proposition that one soul may even be capable of living in different dimensions during the same relative time. What we must appreciate is, if our souls are all part of one great oversoul energy force which divides or extends itself to create our souls, then why shouldn't the offspring of this intelligent soul energy have the same capacity to detach and then recombine? Collecting information about spiritual activity from souls who are in the higher stages of development is sometimes frustrating. This is because the complex nature of memory and knowledge at these levels can make it difficult to sift out what these people recognize and won't tell me from what they really don't know. Case 22 was both knowledgeable and open to my questions. This case is compatible with other accounts in my files about the diversity of soul training in the spirit world. Dr. N. Nentham, I want to turn now to your activities in the spirit world when you are not so busy with Earth incarnations, interacting in soul groups and learning to be a guide. Can you tell me of other spiritual areas in which you are occupied? Subject. Long pause. Yes, there are other areas. I know of them. Dr. N. How many? Subject. Cautiously. I can think of 4. Dr. N. What would you call these areas of activity? Subject. The world without ego. The world of all-knowing. The world of creation and non-creation. And the world of altered time. Dr. N. Are they worlds which exist in our physical universe? Subject. One does. The rest are non-dimensional spheres of attention. Dr. N. All right, let's start with the non-dimensional spheres. Are these 3 areas in the spirit world for the use of souls? Subject. Yes. Dr. N. Why do you call all these spiritual areas worlds? Subject. I see them as habitations for spiritual life. Dr. N. So 3 of them are mental worlds? Subject. Yes, that's what they are. Dr. N. What is the world without ego? Subject. It's the place of learning to be. Dr. N. I have heard of it expressed in different ways. Doesn't it involve the beginners? Subject. Yes. The newly created soul is there to learn who they are. It's the place of origin. Dr. N. Are the ego identities passed out at random, or is there a choice for beginner souls? Subject. The new soul is not capable of choice. You acquire your character based upon the way your energy is combined, put together for you. Dr. N. Is there some sort of spiritual inventory of characteristics that are assigned to souls? So much of one type, so much of another? Subject. Long pause. I think many factors are considered in the allocations of that which makes us who we are. What I do know is, once given, ego becomes a covenant between oneself and the givers. Dr. N. What does that mean? Subject. To do the best I can with who I am. Dr. N. So the purpose of this world is the distribution of soul identity by advanced beings? Subject. Yes, the new soul is pure energy with no real self yet. The world without ego provides you with a signature. Dr. N. Then why do you call it the world without ego? Subject. Because the newly created souls arrive with no ego. The idea of self has not come into the new soul's consciousness. It is here where the soul is offered meaning to its existence. Dr. N. And does the creation of souls with personhood go on continually? Subject. As far as I know, yes. Dr. N. I want you to answer this next question carefully for me. When you acquired your particular identity as a soul, did that automatically mean you were slated for Earth incarnations in human form? Subject. Not specifically, no. Planets don't last forever. Dr. N. I wondered if certain types of souls have an affinity for specific forms of physical life in the universe. Subject. Pause. I won't argue against that. Dr. N. In your beginnings, Nentham, were you given the opportunity to choose other planetary hosts besides humans on Earth? Subject. As a new soul, the guides assist in those selections. I was drawn to human beings. Dr. N. Were you given other choices? Subject. Long pause. Yes, but it's not very clear at the moment. They usually start you on an easy world or two without much to do. Then I was offered service on this severe planet. Dr. N. Earth is considered severe? Subject. Yes. On some worlds you must overcome physical discomforts, even suffering. Others lean toward mental contests. Earth has both. We get kudos for doing well on the hard worlds. Smiling. We are called the adventurous ones by those who don't travel much. Dr. N. What really appeals to you about Earth? Subject. The kinship humans have for each other while they struggle against one another, competing and collaborating at the same time. Dr. N. Isn't that a contradiction? Subject. Laughs. That's what appeals to me. Mediating quarrels of a fallible race which has so much pride and need of self-respect. The human brain is rather unique, you know. Dr. N. How? Subject. Humans are egocentric, but vulnerable. They can make their character mean, and yet have a great capacity for kindness. There is weak and courageous behavior on Earth. It's always a push-me-pull-you tug-of-war going on with human values. This diversity suits my soul. Dr. N. What are some of the other things about human hosts which might appeal to the souls who are sent to Earth? Subject. Those of us developing on Earth have a sanction to help humans know of the infinite beyond their life and to assist them in expressing true benevolence through their passion. Having a passion to fight for life, that's what is so worthwhile about humanity. Dr. N. Humans also have a great capacity for malevolence. Subject. That's part of the passion. But it's evolving too. And when humans experience trouble, they can be at their best and are quite noble. Dr. N. Perhaps it is the soul which fosters the positive characteristics you suggested. Subject. We try to enhance what is already there. Dr. N. Does any soul ever go back to the world without ego after they have once been there and acquired identity? Subject. Uncomfortable. Yes, but I don't want to get into that. Dr. N. Well, then we won't. But I have been told some souls do return if their conduct during physical assignments is consistently irregular. I have the impression they are considered defective and are returned to the factory for a kind of spiritual prefrontal lobotomy. Subject. Subject shakes his head with annoyance. I am offended by that description. Where did you get such a notion? These souls who have developed severe obstacles to improvement are mended by the restoration of positive energy. Dr. N. Is this procedure just for Earth souls? Subject. No, young souls from everywhere may require restoration as a last resort. Dr. N. Are these restored spirits then allowed to return to their respective groups and eventually go back to incarnating on physical worlds? Subject sighs deeply. Yes. Dr. N. How would you compare the world without ego to the world of all-knowing? Subject. They are opposites. This world is not for young souls. Dr. N. Have you been to the world of all-knowing? Subject. No, I'm not ready. I am only aware of it as a place we strive for. Dr. N. What do you know about this spiritual area? Subject. Long pause. It is a place of contemplation, the ultimate mental world of planning and design. I can tell you little about this sphere, except it is the final destination of all thought. The senses of all living things are coordinated here. Dr. N, then the world of all-knowing is abstract in the highest form? Subject, yes, it's about blending content with form, the rational with ideals. It is a dimension where the realization of all our hopes and dreams is possible. Dr. N, well, if you can't go there yet, how come you know about it? Subject, we get glimpses, as an incentive to encourage us to make that final effort, to finish our work and join the masters. The foundation of the spirit world is a place of knowing, and has been alluded to under different names by clients. I am given only bare references to this universal absolute, because even my advanced subjects have no direct experience there. All souls are anxious to reach and be absorbed by this nucleus, especially as they draw closer and are enticed by what little they can see. I'm afraid the world of all-knowing can only be fully understood by a non-reincarnating soul above level 5. Dr. N, if the world without ego and the world of all-knowing are at opposite ends of a soul's experience, then where does the world of altered time fall? Subject, this sphere is available to all souls because it represents their own physical world. In my case, it is Earth. Dr. N, oh, this must be the physical dimension you told me about. Subject, no, the sphere of Earth is only simulated for my use. Dr. N, then all souls in the spirit world wouldn't study the same simulated world? Subject, no. Each of us studies our own geographical planet, where we incarnate. They are physically real, temporarily. Dr. N, and you don't physically live on this simulated world which appears as Earth? You only use it? Subject, yes, that's right, for training purposes. Dr. N, why do you call this third sphere the world of altered time? Subject, because we can change time sequences to study specific events. Dr. N, what is the basic purpose of doing this? Subject, to improve my decisions for life. This study makes me more discriminating and prepares me for the world of all-knowing. Note, subjects frequently use the term world to describe non-physical spatial work areas. These regions can be tiny or indescribably large in relation to the soul, and may involve different dimensions. I believe there are separate realities for different learning experiences outside the restrictions of time. The coexistence of past, present, and future time in spiritual settings, suggested by this case, will be explored further in the next 2 chapters with cases 23 and 25. Dr. N, we haven't talked about the world of creation and non-creation. This must be the 3-dimensional physical world you spoke of earlier. Subject, yes, and we enjoy using it as well. Dr. N, is this world intended for the use of all souls? Subject, no, it is not. I'm just starting to apply myself there. I am considered a newcomer. Dr. N, well, before we get into that, I want to ask you if this physical world is the same as Earth. Subject, no, it is a little different. It's larger and somewhat colder. There is less water, fewer oceans, but similar. Dr. N, is this planet further from its sun than Earth is from our sun? Subject, yes. Dr. N, if I could call this physical world Earth 2, since it seems to be geographically similar to the Earth we know, would it be near Earth 1 in the sky? Subject, no. Dr. N, where is Earth 2 in relation to Earth 1? Subject, pause. I can't tell you. Dr. N, is Earth 2 in our Milky Way galaxy? Subject, long pause. No, I think it's further away. Dr. N. Could I see the galaxy Earth 2 is located in with a telescope from my backyard? Subject. I would think so. Dr. N. Would you say the galaxy containing this physical world is shaped like a spiral as our galaxy, or is it elliptical? How would it look in a telescope from a long way off? Subject. As a great extended chain with a troubled expression. I can't tell you more. Note. As an amateur stargazer who uses a large reflector telescope designed for deep sky objects, I am always inquisitive when a session takes an astronomical turn. Client responses to these kinds of questions usually fall short of my expectations. I am never sure if this is due to blocking by guides or the subject's lack of a physical frame of reference between Earth and the rest of our universe. Dr. N. I throw out a leading question. I suppose you go to Earth 2 to reincarnate with some sort of intelligent being? Subject. Loudly. No! That's just what we don't want to do there. Dr. N. When do you go to Earth 2? Subject. Between my lives on this Earth. Dr. N. Why do you go to Earth 2? Subject. We go there to create and just enjoy ourselves as free spirits. Dr. N. And you don't bother the inhabitants of Earth 2? Subject. Enthusiastically. There are no people. It's so peaceful. We roam among the forests, the deserts, and over oceans with no responsibilities. Dr. N. What is the highest form of life on Earth 2? Subject. Evasive. Oh, small animals without much intelligence. Dr. N. Do animals have souls? Subject. Yes, all living things do, but they are very simple fragments of mind energy. Dr. N. Has your soul and that of your friends evolved from using lower forms of physical life on Earth 1 after your creation? Subject. We don't know for sure, but none of us think so. Dr. N. Why not? Subject. Because intelligent energy is arranged by a precedence of life. Plants, insects, reptiles, each is in a family of souls. Dr. N. And all the categories of living things are separated from each other? Subject. No. The Maker's energy joins the units of every living thing in existence. Dr. N. Are you involved with this element of creation? Subject. Startled. Oh, no. Dr. N. Well, who is selected to visit Earth 2? Subject. Those of us who are connected with Earth come here. This is a vacation spot compared to Earth. Dr. N. Why? Subject. There is no fighting, bickering, or striving for supremacy. There is a pristine atmosphere and all life is quiet. This place gives us an incentive to return to Earth and make it more peaceful too. Dr. N. Well, I do see how this Garden of Eden would allow you to rest and be carefree. But you also said you come here to create. Subject. Yes, we do. Dr. N. It is no accident, then, that souls from Earth come to a world that is so similar geographically? Subject. That's right. Dr. N. Do other souls, who are not earthbound, go to physical worlds which resemble those planets where they incarnate? Subject. Yes. Younger worlds with simpler organisms, to learn to create without any intelligent life around. Dr. N. Go on. Subject. We can experiment with creation and see it developing here. It's as if you were in a lab where you can form physical things from your energy. Dr. N. Do these physical things resemble what you might see on Earth 1? Subject. Yes, only on Earth. That's why I am here. Dr. N. Start with your arrival on Earth 2 and explain to me what your soul does first. Subject. Balks at my question and then finally says, I'm not very good. Note: since this subject is experiencing resistance, I take a few minutes for reconditioning and end with the following. On the count of 3, you will feel more relaxed about telling me what you and Idis consider appropriate for my knowledge. 1, 2, 3. I repeat my question. Subject: I look to see what I am supposed to make on the ground in front of me. Then I mold the object in my mind and try and create the same thing with small doses of energy. The teachers assist us with control. I'm supposed to see my mistakes and make corrections. Dr. N: Who are the teachers? Subject: Idis and Mulkofgil, subject's highly advanced guide. And there are other instructors around. I don't know them very well. Dr. N: Try to be as clear as possible. What exactly are you doing? Subject: We form things. Dr. N: Living things? Subject: I'm not ready for that yet. I experiment with the basic elements, hydrogen and oxygen, to create planetary substance. Rocks, air, water, keeping everything very small. Dr. N: Do you actually create the basic elements of our universe? Subject: No, I just use the elements available. Dr. N: In what way? Subject: I take the basic elements and charge them with impulses from my energy, and they can change. Dr. N: Change into what? Subject: Simply, I'm good with rocks. Dr. N: How do you form rocks with your energy? Subject: Oh, by learning to heat and cool dust to make it hard. Dr. N: Do you make the minerals in the dust? Subject: They do that for you. The teachers give us that stuff. Gas vapors for water making and so on. Dr. N: I want to understand this clearly. Your work consists of learning to create by causing heat, pressure, and cooling from your energy flow? Subject: That's about right, by alternating our currents of energy radiation. Dr. N: So you don't actually produce the substance of rock and water in some chemical way? Subject: No, like I told you, my job is to transform things by mixing what I am given. I play with the frequency and dosages of my energy. It's tricky, but not too complicated. Dr. N: Not complicated. I thought nature did those things. Subject laughs. Who do you think nature is? Dr. N: Well, who creates the basic elements of your experiments? The primary substances of physical matter? Subject: The maker, and those creating on a grander scale than me. Dr. N: Well, in a sense, you are creating inanimate objects such as rocks. Subject: It's more our trying to copy what we see in front of us, what we know. As an afterthought, I'm getting into plants, but I can't do them yet. Dr. N: And you start small, experimenting until you get better? Subject: That's it. We copy things and compare them against the original, so we can make larger models. Dr. N: This all sounds like souls playing as children in a sandbox with toys. Subject smiles. We are children. Directing an energy flow resembles the sculpturing of clay. Dr. N: Are the other members of this creative training class from your original cluster group? Subject: Some are. Most come from all over, the spirit world, but they have all incarnated on Earth. Dr. N: Does everyone make the same things as you do? Subject: Well, of course, some of us are better with certain things, but we help each other. The teachers come around and give us tips and advice on how to improve, but... Stops. Dr. N: But what? Subject, sheepishly. If I am clumsy and do a bad job, I disassemble some creations without showing them to Idas. Dr. N, give me an example. Subject, plants. I don't apply my energy delicately enough to produce the proper chemical conversions. Dr. N, you are not good with the formation of plant life? Subject, no, so I undo my abominations. Dr. N, is this what you mean by uncreation? You can destroy energy? Subject, energy can't be destroyed. We reassemble it and start over using different combinations. Dr. N, I don't see why the Creator needs your help in creating. Subject, for our benefit. We participate in these exercises so that when our work is judged to be of quality, hopefully we can make real contributions to life. Dr. N, if we are all working up the ladder of development as souls, Nentham, I am left with the impression the spirit world is one huge organizational pyramid with a supreme authority of power at the top. Subject, sighs. No, you are wrong. It is not a pyramid. We are all threads in the same long piece of fabric. We are all woven into it. Dr. N, it's hard for me to visualize fabric when there are so many levels of competency for souls. Subject, think of it as a moving continuum rather than souls being in brackets of highs and lows. Dr. N, I always think of souls moving up in their existence. Subject, I know you do, but consider us moving across. Dr. N, give me something I can picture in my mind. Subject, it's as if we are all part of a universal train on a flat track of existence. Most of the souls on Earth are in one car moving along the track. Dr. N, are all other souls in different cars? Subject, yes, but all on the same track. Dr. N, where are the conductors, such as Idas? Subject, they move back and forth between the connected cars, but sit closer to the engine. Dr. N, where is the engine? Subject, the maker? Up front, naturally. Dr. N, can you see the engine from your car? Subject, laughs at me. No, but I can smell the smoke. I can feel the engine rumbling along and I can hear the motor. Dr. N, it would be nice if all of us were closer to the engine. Subject, ultimately, we will be. From what I am able to determine, souls are expected to begin familiarizing themselves with the forces of creation by the time they are solidly established in level 3. Exposure to plant photosynthesis takes place before student souls work up the organic scale of life. I am told that early creation training consists of souls learning relationships between substances to develop the ability of unifying their energy with different values in the elements. The formation of inanimate to animate objects from the simple to the complex is a long, slow process. Students are encouraged to create miniature planetary microhabitats for a given set of organisms which can adapt to certain environmental conditions. With practice comes improvement, but not until they approach level 5 do my clients begin to feel they might actually contribute to the development of living things. We will hear more about this with Case 23. However, many of my clients won't or can't talk about creation. Some souls seem to have a natural gift for working with energy in their creation classes. My cases indicate ability in creation assignments does not mean a soul is at the same level of advancement in all other areas of the spiritual curricula. A soul may be a good technician in harnessing the forces of creation, but lack the subtle techniques of a competent guide. Perhaps this is why I have been given the impression that the highly advanced soul is allowed to specialize. In the previous chapter, I explained some benefits of soul solitude And the last case gave us another example. Spiritual experience is not easily translated into human language. Case 22 talks about the world of altered time as a means of transient planetary study. To someone in trance, it is the timeless mental world that is true reality, while all else is an illusion created for various benefits. Other subjects at about the same level call this sphere the space of transformation, or simply rooms of recreation. Here, I'm told, souls are able to meld their energy into animate and inanimate objects created for learning and pleasure. One subject said to me, "I think of what I want and it happens. I know I'm being assisted." We can be anything familiar to our past experiences. For instance, souls can become rocks to capture the essence of density, trees for serenity, water for a flowing cohesiveness, butterflies for freedom and beauty, and whales for power and immensity. People deny these actions represent former earthly transmigrations. I have also learned souls may become amorphous, without substance or texture, and totally integrate into a particular feeling, such as compassion, to sharpen their sensitivity. Some subjects tell of being mystical spirits of nature, including figures I associate with folklore, such as elves, giants, and mermaids. Personal contact with strange mythological beasts are mentioned as well. These accounts are so vivid, it is hard for me to simply label them as metaphoric. Are the old folk tales of many races pure superstition, or manifestations of shared soul experience? I have the sense that many of our legends are the sympathetic memories of souls carried from other places to Earth long ago.